Have you ever struggled to build a meditation habit? Hi, my name is Samra Obiselby. I'm the host of the show Super Awesome You on the Super Awesome Mix podcast network. You can find more of the show's content at Super Awesome You on Instagram, TikTok, and Threads. I am nearing 3 years of meditating every single day for 10 minutes a day, and I honestly can't believe it. It has been an incredible journey for me, and one that did not start 3 years ago. It actually started about 6 or 7 years ago, and I struggled with it a lot. I could barely even do a minute or maybe even 3 minutes a day. I would often view meditating as a chore, as something I had to do rather than something I wanted to do. I would challenge myself to try to hit a streak and then just resented the streak and resented the app that was holding me to a streak and then just felt frustrated by the whole thing, would walk away and delete everything and just say, meditation's not for me. But then I would be drawn back to it because I felt that in an increasingly noisy world, I needed some time every single day to just exist and to not be doing something, to not have a goal in mind, and to literally just learn how to sit still and breathe and focus on my breath. I struggled with meditation because I felt very much alone in my experience. I was convinced that everyone was way better at it than I was. And I was convinced that me having a bunch of racing thoughts and frustrations and antsiness was something specific to me, and that no one else experienced those things and they could all just sit there and be quiet and have like a quiet mind. I honestly thought meditating would lead to having my thoughts stop. And that is a huge misconception, and one that was really damaging for me in my experience. Meditating, at least my experience with it, is not about having your thoughts stop. Yes, that might happen every now and then for like a second or two. Your inner monologue just goes quiet and it's very peaceful and serene. But for the most part, your inner monologue is just chattering away. The difference, though, is that you learn through meditating how to redirect your thought back to your breath. They focus on breath because it's something that's always with you and it's a focal point. And really, it's working on a focus muscle in the same way that you would work on a bicep or your legs. You get it a little bit stronger and a little bit stronger and a little bit stronger. And eventually, the whole point of meditating is that you are literally building focus muscle. The next time that you are tasked with something and you find yourself getting distracted, with a meditation habit, you're more likely to catch yourself being distracted and bring yourself back to what you're trying to focus on. In much the same way that during those 10 minutes of sitting and breathing, you're doing that all the time. That's like a concentrated exercise for your brain to try to stay focused on your breath, even though your mind is going to be trying to draw you to doing laundry and cleaning the dishes and taking the dog out and working on that work project and sending that email and all the millions of things that your brain wants you to do instead. Those first few sessions, and by few sessions, I mean basically the first year, you're going to sit and you're going to struggle and you're going to be frustrated. But if you stick with it, you will find that eventually it gets a little bit easier to bring yourself back to the breath. And eventually that no longer is true just during your meditation session, but it's true in your everyday life. And then what I have found almost 3 years into this is that it has honestly rewired how I think about emotions and how I think about anything at all. Whenever I start to have anxious feelings or feelings of being afraid to do something or feelings of being angry or feelings of being happy or any feelings at all, I'm able to quickly identify that I'm having those feelings and realize that those feelings are basically somehow different than me. Like I'm a little bit removed from those feelings. And so then I can choose to act on them or not. So if I'm feeling happy, I most likely am going to act on those feelings because, feeling happy is a very joyful and fun thing to do. So I can identify like, hey, I'm feeling happy. This is great. And here's why I'm feeling happy. And what a fun time. This is awesome. Conversely, with negative emotions, I find it very helpful because if I'm feeling angry, I notice that I'm feeling angry and I might choose ideally to not act on those feelings of anger because usually that's like a destructive, negative thing to do. And I'm going to end up feeling worse if I act on them versus feeling better. Or I might find a constructive way to deal with those angry feelings rather than a destructive way. So rather than pouting and throwing a tantrum, I might instead go for a run for, 3 or 4 miles to get that energy out and work through something. And I'm only able to do that because I have found myself feeling those feelings of anger, identified that they are there, and then identified an action I want to take to deal with them. Prior to these 3 years of meditating, I was not able to do any of that. I would just respond immediately to whatever feeling popped up in my heart or in my brain. If I was angry, I was going to be angry. If I was happy, I was going to be happy. If I was sad, I was going to be sad. And I had no idea why or what I was doing. And I often would end up, going on some kind of like taking some action and then feeling a bunch of regret and wondering, why did I do that? And I should know better. And the cycle would just repeat like that. That really is only possible through this meditating practice. And I would argue it takes at least a year before you really start to see any benefit in your life with that. I mean, at least it did for me. Maybe you are super awesome, and just a week or two into meditating, you can start to notice your own feelings and emotions, and like something unlocks in you a lot faster, which would be so great if that's true. But my experience, and I'm willing to bet that most people's experience, is that that's not the case. And it does take a very long time, which is why it's so easy to walk away from and why it's easy to feel like you're struggling with it. But I would really encourage you that if you want to start a meditating habit, to truly stick with it. I can't imagine my life without it. It has turned from something that is a chore into something that I definitely look forward to doing. In fact, I will often meditate 2 to 3 times per day now. I'll use it as a work break throughout the day. I will use it as kind of a way to go to sleep sometimes if I'm feeling extra wired up and my brain is super chatty and I just need to kind of calm myself and recenter. I use it as a way to start my day. That's usually the one that I do. The 10 minutes is usually first thing in the morning. I found that first thing in the morning is the most helpful time to schedule for yourself because you're less likely to be distracted by something. So I will literally have like some headphones by my bed, have my phone, and immediately just open up a meditation app first thing before I get out of bed. So I might just sit up in bed with the pillows behind me, or just sometimes stay lying down, press play on a guided meditation, and I'm on my way. And then that way, first 10 minutes of my day are actually very calming, very soothing, and I've done my task for the day. And like, it's a great way to start the day, actually. In an upcoming episode, I'm going to spend some more time on this topic and specifically dive into some of the science behind it. But truly, I just wanted to spend a little bit of time this week talking about my own experience and hopefully helping you feel a little bit more encouraged if you have a similar experience of kind of struggling with it and not understanding what it's supposed to do. So the key takeaways for this week before we wrap up are: one, stick with it because it's going to be frustrating and you're going to feel like you're doing it all wrong, but I promise you that you're not. Two, it is not about silencing your mind or reaching a point where you have no thoughts. It's really more about identifying thoughts when you have them and identifying feelings and being able to separate yourself out from them. And three, forgive yourself if you have sessions that you feel like you did terribly on. I have sessions like that all the time. I'm almost 3 years into it. And quite literally last month, I had a session where I felt angry the entire 10 minutes I was sitting. I didn't want to be doing it. I was like, I don't like this. I feel antsy. I want to get up. I felt as if I was like a small child being put in timeout again. Like somehow I was being punished to sit there. And my thoughts were racing. My body was literally fidgeting and I didn't want to sit for those 10 minutes. And I fought through it and exited and was like, oh my gosh, what a relief. I'm done with that meditation. That's going to happen. You never know quite what you're feeling until you check in with yourself. And I think that that's the other magic of meditating. We live in a very noisy, information filled world, and being able to take 5 to 10 minutes every single day to learn how to sit and just be with yourself is immensely powerful and will separate you out from most of the people that are spending those 10 minutes on TikTok or on Instagram. They are not giving their brain a rest, and they are not kind of refueling themselves. And you would be surprised. I have now started to keep a notebook next to me whenever I meditate because I problem solve like crazy sometimes in those 10 minutes. I will sit down in 2 minutes and I'll be like, oh my gosh, I know how to do this thing for work. And oh my gosh, I know what I need to do for super awesome. And all of these cool things would pop up because I allowed myself that time to quiet the mind and not be taking in information. So those are some of the many, many benefits of meditating. If you aren't already doing it, please consider starting. There's some great apps out there like Calm, like Headspace, like 10% Happier, Insight Timer, so many more. Like I said, you could also check out YouTube for some free ones. So hopefully you start if you haven't already. And if you have started, I hope you're enjoying it. And I would love to hear some of the benefits you've experienced. You can hit me up on Super Awesome You on Instagram. So until next week, I hope you have a calm and very lovely and illuminating week ahead. See you next Tuesday.